My friends don't walk, they run. Skinny dipping rabbit holes for fun.
All right. Welcome to the Quizzical Spirit podcast. We took a break for a couple of weeks for COVID and other things. But we're back. And the first thing we're going to talk about today is...
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, that's right. I'm Ross.
And I'm Deb Heim.
Right. And we're going to talk about author copies and covers. This was the cover for my original book, Spirit Sight. Look how big that is. That was a problem. I'm a little more fond of this than I used to be, but
it's a legacy.
People told us that it looked like a self-published book, right? And that's a killer.
Yeah.
Right. So then, so when my publisher asked me to split Spirit Sight into two books. This is the cover that Deb and I came up with for Spirit Sight Volume 1. And I like it because it shows Minna alone, and so her against the world. My publisher didn't like it that much, but they don't really push back that much. I kind of like it. And you can't really see it here, but there are little hints of the spirits, the Lanan and the... Then Spirit Sight Volume 2, and this one they really didn't like because
they say that?
Yeah, they said it really wasn't a fantasy cover, but I love it. And so anyway, I don't know how much difference it makes. Then we did Argon Blue. Deb
had to have loved that.
Yeah, Deb found this image on iStock or Shutterstock, one of the sites, and we had them edited a little bit, but I love it. I think that's a great cover. The only issue with this cover is a little dark, and that's something that's supposed to be. But I like
this is Alar in the Annenheim doing magic-y things.
And we just got the author copies for Spirit Light Volume 1, which is the book that follows Spirit Sight Volume 2. And I absolutely love this cover. There it is. And that's actually
becoming our banner for the world of Argren in general. It's just so dynamic.
It's a very dynamic cover. The color's amazing. I just love this color, right?
Yeah.
So this comes out on August 1st. And if you're watching this and you're interested in doing a review for us, then let us know.
Contact us. Yes. Or if you want an early copy, we have some.
Right. Yeah, that's what I mean. We'll provide an ARC copy, advanced reviewer copy, and you can get it. And I love this book. I think it's an amazing book.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're working on Oss'stera, which is kind of a parallel book to the book that's coming out in November called Desulti. And it's part of the prequel series. The prequels tell how Reagan basically got everything in place for Minna et al. To be able to transform the empire. And there's going to be, we have several prequel books planned, but today I was thinking about like 3 or 4 others. So, who knows?
It's always complicated.
Right. So Oss'stera's coming along. It's a really kind of a romp of a book compared to the other books. Not quite as fraught, more humor, and shorter. I love it. And
so good.
We don't know when that's going to come out, but it's a really great book. And I'm also working on, and what we were going to talk about today is I'm working on Spirit Light Volume 2. And that book is, I've had more difficulty with that book than I have with a lot of other books. And
why is that?
That's what we're going to talk about. Normally we talked about in a previous webinar or podcast, whatever this is, about candlelight scenes, candle in the
Yes.
window scenes, where there's scenes I know have to be in the book,
Right.
and I write into the dark from the beginning to the end between
Right.
those scenes. This book,
They're
I've
like
had,
tent poles.
yeah, I've had the worst trouble. Writing from the beginning to those scenes. I've kind of
Yeah.
resorted to just writing those scenes and having no idea what happens between those scenes. And
So he's been jumping around a lot more
yeah,
than usual. So when I'm doing the reading, it's like, oh, we're going from chapter 3 to chapter 7. I'm like,
mhm,
what about 4, 5, and 6? He's going,
yeah,
which is not, he's usually kind of
yeah,
stepwise, and this is not that. So I have to kind of in my mind go, okay, there's stuff that happened in between that I may or may not understand. I have to kind of take these chapters a little more as they are. We always print out a hard copy of the book at the end and go stepwise, one, catching grammatical errors, but also just doing that big, does
yeah,
this whole thing make sense? So I know this process well enough now to know, okay, it's going to make sense later, but this
hopefully.
is a little more, right. This is a little more, yeah, I don't know what's coming.
Yeah, I don't either. And not only do I not know what's coming, I don't know what happens before. So, and I've been trying to figure out why. And so I have thoughts. That's what we're going to talk about a little bit. One of the problems is that as you get farther into a series like this,
Yeah,
a really complicated series, where
really
there's
complicated.
prophecy and there's prequels in the regular books, and there are a lot more guardrails.
The actual, like, where it's going to go just starts to do this.
Yeah, you run out of sort of options. You have to adhere to what happened before.
Yeah.
And the magic system is pretty well defined at this point. There's some
Correct.
variants I can work with, but whatever happens has to kind of, with the magic has to happen within the bounds of what's been done before.
Yes.
So that's one problem. And
Right.
I know where it's going. I don't know exactly how it's going to happen, but I've read a lot of history recently, so I have an idea of how this all is going to end up. But that, in some senses, makes it more difficult because you want to write an interesting story, but then it has to fall within, what's
It has to be logical. Unlike some other, like, there has to be a logic to it, and there also has to be a driving narrative and a driving vision about where it's going. And one of the things that Ross did that I found really helpful, and really like watershed, was we know a good bit about Reagan's vision. Her vision is what happens if the or like, we still don't know exactly what's going to happen, but we know what isn't going to happen. The Alaos are not going to disappear as a people. They will be able to maintain their culture. They will be
maybe
able to,
you don't
maybe.
know.
Well, but that's her vision, is that they are able to remain as an integral people of
Well,
one way or another, which is what they look at the Styrians and the Ferrol and the Andeans and what happened to them, and they know they don't want that.
right.
So
And the biggest problem I have is that in Spirit Sight, Reagan and Harold are talking, and Reagan tells him she wants to transform the empire without it descending
Transform.
into chaos. And if you look
Because
historically, those kind of overthrowing
they,
empires, revolutions, they
there's
usually
chaos.
descend into chaos and bloodshed, right? And so
Right.
my problem is how to bring this thing, land this puppy without that happening,
The
you know,
soft thing, like,
right.
like the Fed is trying to do with the economy. Like,
Mm.
right. So, the thing is, so that's Reagan's vision, which is coming into focus, but is not in focus
Mhm.
because it's prophecy. And
Right. And
there's a
that's,
whole thing about whether or not she tells people things. There
and then
is,
that's a big part of Oss'stera is, and
yes,
Desulti is putting the pieces in place that can make that happen, right? And you may not even, when you read the book, you may not even realize that that's what's happening. But ultimately, in the long term, you'll see that's what's
you
happening.
can
How do
see her
we,
hand.
yeah,
However, there is the doppelganger, the alternative vision, which is the vision of the Volok Empire maintaining supremacy and
right.
continuing to put their thumb or boot on the neck of
Yeah.
all the people around them. And that is, who is the character who has that vision?
Yeah. And so that's one of the issues I ran into with volume two, Spirit Light volume two, is Horst is the bad guy, right? And
He
he,
is the Malleus,
the Malleus, and he, I love
not the emperor, not the
right.
emperor,
Uh,
below the emperor, but
yeah.
not the emperor. Super important
Horse, yeah,
point.
he's the guy who's pulling the strings, and he has a plan, right? He has a plan to put the empire back in, the empire's teetering.
Boot on the neck
Yeah,
of the
he
people.
wants to put the Volok caste at the top and, fix all the finances of the empire and put
Get
an
rid of
emperor
the
in
Desulti,
places.
who are this
Yeah.
upstart organization within the Volok Empire who allow women to get out of their roles as wife and
Mhm.
mother, and they
And that's part of
destabilize.
his issues there with
Right,
he calls the Sultai a parasitic, organization.
right.
So my problem is that with volume one, the Empire got his butt kicked.
That was by design, but
Yeah.
it was a watershed moment.
Hmm.
The Volok Empire put their quote unquote full forces against the
Yeah.
Alaos and lost.
The Alaos survived that. Um,
Wow. Like
right.
that should not have happened
Yeah.
at all. From Horst's point of view, that is cataclysmic. That
Yeah.
this aggression cannot stand. Like there's no way. And there's all kinds of moving parts of who did it
Mhm.
and why it happened. And it's
So then the horse at the beginning of the volume two, I have to figure out, well, what does Horse do now? Right? How do we maintain him as a threat,
right.
and keep his plans going so that
Right.
there's actually this, arc that the Elliotts had to fight against. And so that was one of the things I had the most trouble with at the beginning is how to do that. You would have thought that I would have thought
But
of that
you
beforehand.
did at the very beginning, basically outline Horst's
Mhm.
vision, which
Right.
is he does not have the gift of prophecy, but he is extremely strategic, canny, has really no ego in the sense of, oh, I want everybody to know I did it. Like
Yeah.
he is
Although there's a reason
he's
he's the
a real
Malian.
Machiavellian,
So
real, yeah,
you hopefully will find out at some point why he was put into that position. But I think I wrote a scene. One of the first things I did was, I struggled for a while, and then I wrote a scene with the Malias, trying to
course.
outline what his goals are now. What does he do? And once I got that
Oh,
written,
such a good scene.
I think it works.
Right. But that, like, and to me, what I find compelling about every single one of the books that Ross writes or we write together is at some point there is a person or a few people who have that that they're the tent pole. They're the person, whether it's Reagan, she's not alive anymore. Sorry, spoiler alert. But like it's Minna and Aelin in some of the books. In this book, yes, it's Minna and Aelin, but it's forced. His vision,
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that, but we'll see what happens.
but his vision of things
Right. Yeah,
impacts.
but his vision of things, what is always driving the story.
Yes.
You know, but
Right, but that it is characters who have like I want this to happen. It's and in each of the books it's a little bit different. In Desulti, it was Tove. In Oss'stera, it's gonna be Alar, Scylla, and Ukrit. Like
yeah,
they're all
the Prinkle books are a little bit different because
that's
they
true.
have different characters. The trilogy is, and one of the
We're
problems I
still
have
calling
with
it a trilogy, even though it's gonna be 6 books, but
I know, but but it says trilogy right there on the cover.
wow. Oh my
I know.
God.
Yeah, I made mistakes.
That makes it
Right.
sound like that's the end, and it's not even
I know.
close.
It's confusing, right? We just got a fantastic review for Spirit Light from
Yes,
Reader's
we
Favorite,
did. Yes.
and they said it was the first book in the series.
They thought it was the first book. Woo!
Yeah,
Which I have to tell you, I was thrilled about. So, in other words, you could jump into this
right.
in the middle and still feel like you're you don't have which
You're not lost, right?
I think
Yeah.
has a lot to do with Ross's writing skill. I'm just gonna
Yeah,
say that.
absolutely. That's the truth.
We're at 18 minutes.
Yeah. So, so we're over time.
Overtime.
Yeah. So I think in Spirit Light, I think I finally got the grip on Volume 2, and we'll see where it goes.
Next week, who knows what we're going to talk about? We have no idea. It
All
always
right.
happens during the week. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.